You probably didn't think twice about eating today. A quick breakfast in the morning, lunch somewhere in the middle, dinner waiting later in the evening. It feels automatic, almost like it has always been this way. But that feeling is misleading, because the idea of 3 fixed daily meals is not something nature designed for humans. It is something humans built much later. For much of human history, eating was far less tied to a standardized clock schedule than it is today. Instead of fixed meal times, food patterns were shaped by environment, survival needs, and social routines that changed across seasons and communities. One fascinating glimpse into early human life comes from Eholo, a lakeside site near the Sea of Galilee dating back around 23,000 years. What archaeologists found there is not a menu of daily meals, but evidence of a flexible survival system: huts, hearths, plant remains, nuts, seeds, and animal bones. This community hunted, gathered, fished, and foraged from their surroundings. Food was deeply connected to opportunity. A successful hunt or abundant harvest could mean a period of plenty. A difficult stretch could mean scarcity. There were rhythms to eating, but not the rigid daily structure we recognize today. As agriculture emerged around 10,000 BCE in regions like the Fertile Crescent, human life changed dramatically. People began producing food instead of constantly chasing it. Settlements became permanent, grain storage became possible, cooking practices became more organized. Yet, even this shift did not instantly create the familiar breakfast, lunch, dinner pattern. Different ancient societies organized eating in different ways. Some cultures leaned toward 2 main meals, others centered the day around a single large meal. And many eating occasions were flexible rather than fixed to specific hours. What this tells us is simple but important. Agriculture changed food production, but it did not standardize meal timing. So if the 3-meal structure wasn't ancient or universal, where did it actually come from? The answer doesn't begin in early human survival. It begins much later, when human life stopped being guided by sunlight and seasons alone and started being organized around something entirely new: the clock. The idea of eating 3 structured meals a day didn't suddenly appear in human history. It developed slowly as societies became more organized and increasingly governed by time. For much of human history, daily life was less controlled by standardized clock schedules than it is today. Eating patterns were shaped by food availability, work, daylight, social customs, and local tradition. Even ancient Rome had a different rhythm. Its main meal, called cena, was typically the most important meal of the day, while a lighter morning intake, known as ientaculum, existed without matching our modern breakfast routine. Other societies followed their own patterns. So, 3 meals at fixed times were still far from universal. A major shift came as institutions began coordinating people's daily activities. On ships, including those of the British Royal Navy, work, rest, supplies, and meals had to fit around duty and discipline. This didn't create the 3-meal system, but it demonstrated how structured eating could function. The deeper transformation came with industrialization. As factories expanded, more people began working according to fixed hours instead of natural daylight. Work became divided into shifts, breaks, and routines. And once working hours became standardized, eating had to fit the timetable. Breakfast before work, a midday pause, an evening meal after the shift. Industrial society didn't invent multiple meals, but it helped reinforce and standardize patterns already developing. Breakfast itself also became more regular as demanding work made starting the day without food less practical for many people. The morning meal increasingly became an expectation rather than an occasional choice. But even this doesn't explain why breakfast became something people felt they should eat every day. And that transformation wasn't driven by factories or clocks, but by something far more persuasive: advertising and industry. The modern breakfast did not become a daily ritual because humans suddenly realized they needed it. It emerged gradually as industrial life reshaped routines and as new ideas about health and food began to spread. As factory work expanded during the 19th century, mornings became increasingly structured. People woke at fixed hours, prepared quickly, traveled to work, then spent long stretches performing continuous labor. In that environment, eating before work became increasingly practical and often necessary for getting through a long working day. But practicality alone doesn't explain how breakfast became a cultural expectation. By the 19th century, food manufacturers were increasingly turning established eating habits into consumer markets. John Harvey Kellogg became one prominent figure in the emerging breakfast food industry, promoting cornflakes within a broader health-oriented dietary philosophy. His work was part of a wider movement involving reformers and entrepreneurs experimenting with processed grain foods and convenient breakfast options. Over time, breakfast cereals became associated with a morning meal that was light, quick, and consistent. As companies expanded their marketing, breakfast was framed not just as something people might eat, but as part of a modern, efficient lifestyle. Start your day with breakfast. Keep it simple. Make it routine. Choose convenient foods. But no single factor created the habit. Industrial schedules structured the morning. Households adapted to work life. Nutritional ideas gave breakfast legitimacy. Mass-produced foods made it convenient, and advertising reinforced the routine. Each layer strengthened the others until the pattern began to feel natural. Dinner was changing too. In many pre-industrial communities, the largest meal was often eaten earlier. But as working hours became more rigid, long midday meals became less practical. The main meal gradually shifted toward evening after work. By the 19th century, this rhythm was becoming increasingly recognizable in industrializing societies. Food before work, a break during work, food after work. Schools adopted fixed meal times. Families organized evenings around dinner. Businesses structured working hours around breaks. The three-meal structure became embedded not as a rule written in nature, but as a rhythm written into modern life. Still, the body had its own timing system. And when scientists began studying that system, they discovered something unexpected. The schedule organizing your day isn't the only clock influencing your hunger. There is another one running inside you. Modern society may have taught us when to eat, but your body has its own internal schedule. Inside every human being is a biological timing system called the circadian rhythm. It helps coordinate sleep, hormone release, body temperature, metabolism, and many other functions across a roughly 24-hour cycle. And food timing interacts closely with this system. Your body's metabolic responses can vary depending on the time of day. After the overnight fast, hormonal signals shift as the body transitions into daytime activity, and the way we process nutrients can also change depending on when food is consumed. Cortisol, for example, naturally rises around waking as part of this broader transition. But this doesn't mean everyone must eat breakfast at a specific hour. It simply means when you eat can influence how your body responds. Scientists have also observed something called food anticipation. When people repeatedly eat at consistent times, the body can begin adjusting before the expected meal. Hunger may appear, digestive activity can shift, metabolic processes can begin preparing before food arrives. Your body doesn't consciously know breakfast is coming, but repeated meal timing can condition physiological responses before eating occurs. Still, this doesn't mean humans are designed for exactly 3 meals every day. 2 meals can fit one person's routine. 3 can work. Some people may eat more frequently, while others may eat less often. Meal timing exists within a much larger system involving total food intake, sleep, activity, health, and individual variation. So, the historical 3-meal structure should not be mistaken for a biological rule. Human history shows enormous variation in eating patterns, while modern physiology suggests timing can matter without proving one universal schedule is ideal for everyone. But humans don't eat with biology alone. We eat with other people. For thousands of years, food has also been deeply social. People gather around fires, families share meals, communities eat together. Meals create opportunities for conversation, cooperation, celebration, and belonging. Breakfast gets the day moving. Lunch creates a pause. Dinner brings people together. The pattern became practical, biological, and social at the same time. But if 3 meals aren't a biological requirement, why did this particular structure become so dominant that billions of people follow it almost automatically? Because eventually, meals stopped being just something we scheduled, they became something society taught us to share. Why do we eat 3 meals a day? No single person invented it. It emerged from several forces working together. For early humans, eating depended on what could be found. A hunt or seasonal abundance could provide plenty of food. At other times, there might be very little. There was little reason for every community to follow the same 3-part schedule when food availability varied. Agriculture changed that relationship. People settled and stored food, but farming societies still followed different meal patterns. The 3-part rhythm became increasingly common later, as institutions and industrial work reinforced schedules. Factories organized life around fixed hours. Breakfast happened before work. Lunch fit into a break. Dinner waited until the workday ended. Food companies helped reinforce breakfast as a habit. Then families, schools, workplaces, and businesses organized around similar routines. But society making 3 meals normal doesn't mean the body demands 3. Our circadian system interacts with meal timing, and repeated routines can influence anticipation. So 3 meals are best understood as an emergent pattern shaped by work, culture, commerce, biology. The schedule feels ancient, but it isn't a timeless human rule. It feels biological, but it isn't purely biological. It feels inevitable, but humans could have organized eating differently. Not a law of nature, not an ancient commandment, a routine built over thousands of years. Next time you feel hungry at your mealtime, ask yourself how much comes from your body and how much comes from a routine your body has learned.